Hi there. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that I'm pretty familiar with, and that's preparing to be kicked out of your parents' house. Now, a lot of us might be in tumultuous dynamics with our family, and it's not a topic that people are openly talking about, like, hey, dude, I'm about to get kicked out of my parents' house. What do I do? And I've been through it all, so hopefully my experience can help you. I had to learn the hard way so that you don't have to. So hopefully my experience can help you prepare for the situation, gain some mental clarity, and make the best out of a obviously terrible situation. For those of you that don't know me, hi, I'm Brownie. I call myself a professional older sister, and I've been through it all. Been kicked out of the house, moved away for college, moved out of the country by myself, bought my own car. So when it comes to adulting and doing life, I feel like I learn a lot of things the hard way, and I'm hoping that my experiences can at least bring someone some clarity and so that they don't have to learn these mistakes the hard way. So we're going to go over three main points today, especially when it comes to a situation like this where your parents or your guardians might be kicking you out of the house. You know that there's that big fight coming up that might make or break the relationship. First, we're going to go over emotionally preparing for this and where your head is going to be at, your budget and finances, which is super important. The most important, the plan. How are you going to plan for this? What do you need to do? So let's get into it. So the first point being emotionally preparing for this move. First, what you need to do is accept the situation for what it is. When I was preparing to get kicked out of my parents' house, it was during COVID. We were all home. I was sharing a room with all three of my sisters and a grandma. I was sharing a bed at one point, had no privacy, had no autonomy. I had just come home from college and my parents were treating me like a kid again. It was a really, really terrible situation. And for some background, I am the eldest daughter of immigrants. Like, we're Dominican, so there's that whole machismo going on. It was just like not a great situation to be in. And once I saw the writing on the wall, I was like, yeah, girl, this is going downhill. And start talking to those trusted around you about the situation. So I was talking to my friends for advice. I had a really great friend who's still my best friend to this day, and I love her, and she's changed my life in so many ways. And she had been in similar situations, and she got me like that mental preparation of like, hey, it's gonna be okay. We're here for you. This is just what the situation is right now. This is how your parents are, but we can do something to help alleviate that for you, right? And acknowledge that it can be a difficult situation, but it's not impossible. People have been kicked out before. If you're anything like me, you know how your parents are. They might say something and not mean it, but you're at your wit's end and you're like, I'm going to leave regardless because, hello. Now, the second point, after being emotionally prepared and kind of gearing yourself up and saying, okay, this is the situation at hand, these are my options, this is what I have to do, is looking at your budget and finances. When people are preparing to get kicked out, I feel like is a very unique situation because you're not getting kicked out right at this moment, but it's building up, right? You maybe have a month maximum where you're like, okay, we have like 1 to 3 months of this going on any longer before one of us breaks. So really take a good look at your budget and finances. And what does that mean? Just be realistic about all of your expenses and all of your income. How much money is coming in, how much money is coming out, and how much are you going to need after you're out of the house? And I'm guessing you're either not paying a lot of bills or not paying anything at all bill-wise at your parents' house. What I do personally is I started tracking my income, and I'll link my tracker down below, but you don't need to do that right now. You don't need to spend the money. You can literally write it on pen and paper. Whatever works for you when it comes to budget tracking, you can do that. And if you guys want, and comment down below if you want a detailed guide on what I do with my budget and how I organize my finances, I would love to provide that. Then start being really strict and cutting back. This is not the moment where you're living your best life and you can just spend like you want to. This is a moment of sacrifice because what you don't sacrifice now is going to affect you in the long term, especially when you're getting kicked out of the house. Like, the most important thing when you're getting kicked out or when you're preparing for that like tumultuous situation is to ideally have a lot of liquid cash on hand. And what does that mean? Liquid cash just means cash that has no barrier for you to grab. Like, it's either in your checking and savings. And going off of that, you should always try to have an emergency savings. The rule of thumb for an emergency savings is 3 to 6 months of expenses. More is always best. So calculate your expenses by going over what you spend in a month and times that by 3. I would times that by 6, maybe even a whole year, because when you're living at home, you don't have nearly as many expenses as you think you will. And if you want a breakdown of what my expenses were when I lived outside of the house versus when I live inside of the house, comment down below and I can make a video on that too. So when you have an emergency savings, it is highly, highly recommended to put it in a high yield savings account What a high yield savings account is literally the same thing as a savings account. It just gives you more return on your money. A traditional savings account, like with your traditional banks, will usually give you a 0.01% return on your money, meaning literally no money at all, versus a high yield savings account will usually be anywhere from 2% to 5%, depending on how the economy is going. It's not going to give you the most money in the world, but it's better than a traditional savings account. And I personally use Ally. It's free to use. I don't have any links or anything. I'm not trying to sell anything to you. It's just what I use. And I like it. It's user friendly. So yeah. And for those of you that are in a situation, because obviously when you're getting kicked out of the house, 9 times out of 10, this usually happens to minors. If you're in a situation where, one, you don't trust your parents because they usually are the ones that have control over your bank accounts, or you don't have a bank account, period, the two things that you can do is, if you can't access your cash safely, is have a secret lockbox, ideally away from the house or very well hidden, somewhere where like someone is trusted, but obviously like I don't know who you can trust that much. Or maybe even a better scenario is have a trusted adult, like a family member, an aunt, an uncle, or somebody, go and open up that guardianship account for you. Because when you're a minor, you do need an adult to help you open up that bank account. Now, the last point and the most important is the plan. How do you plan for something like this? Because obviously you could get kicked out today, you could get kicked out tomorrow. Sometimes you kind of feel that bubbling up. So what I personally did is I talked with 1 to 3 friends and I coordinated what was going to happen. So I had a friend that was ready to pick me up because I didn't have a car at that moment. So she was ready to pick me up and drop me off where I needed to be. And she was able to store my things at her house. She had a basement, she had a lot of space. She was living at home with her parents, but she had a lot of space for my stuff. So I didn't have to worry about what am I going to do with all that stuff, because this was around summertime when I was going to have to go back to campus. So it's like I was going to get kicked out of my parents' house and I was probably going to have to live somewhere for a few weeks. And then I'm like, where's all my stuff going to go? And then my other friend, the one that was preparing me mentally for this, was willing and able to have me stay at her house with her. So arrange where you can stay and where. Now, these are the options for where you can stay. I personally stayed with a friend and family. So I stayed with my friend for about a week because it feels awkward, right? Sometimes to like stay with people for more time than you thought you would. And then I went to my aunt's house and stayed with her as well. So the options are family and friends, first of all. The cheaper the stay, it's usually free, I would hope. Long-term stays like motels, hotels, like safety first though, obviously. Check if your school has resources, either your high school, your guidance counselors, depending on what situation you have going on. And then also Airbnb could be an option for you. Also, in the back of your head, think about how long is this going to be? For me personally, I got kicked out a week before I needed to move into college. So I knew I just needed to survive a week. But for some people that's longer, that's shorter. Sometimes our parents hold back on their decision. They're like, no. For me personally, like, when I got kicked out, I was like, you know what? I was ready for this. I knew it was coming, and I didn't want to back down because I was treated with such disrespect that I was like, this is my moment to really take that control back and tell my parents, like, hey, I'm not a child. You can't just treat me willy-nilly. You can't just disrespect me and yell at me and curse me out and then expect me to pretend like nothing is wrong here. If you're going to kick me out, stand on that. And off of that, what would it take for you, one, to come back? Is it because money is running tight? Is it because your parents apologize? Like, just have that in the back of your head. And is it going to be permanent? Like with me, my mom literally showed up at my aunt's house a week later and was like, hey, how are you getting to college? And I'm like, I'm driving. And she's like, how? And I'm like, because I have a license and I can rent a U-Haul. And she was like, okay, well, just drive you. And in true immigrant fashion, we literally never talked about it again. We didn't discuss me getting kicked out. We didn't talk about it. They helped me move to college and we called it a day. It's been 4 years since that. Literally have never even spoken a peep about them doing that. So that's what I personally did to prepare getting kicked out of my parents' house. I know it can be a really tough situation, and I know not everyone's situation is going to be similar to mine. I was in a really good spot financially because it was COVID and I was gaining unemployment checks and such like that. But these are the bare bones of what you can do to prepare for it. It's not a situation that anyone wants to be in, and I hope that you never have to use this advice. That's my hope. But obviously, that's not how the world works. And if you do need to use this advice, I hope that this can help. If you have any questions, leave them down below and I'll try to answer them. And to recap this video, we talked about emotionally preparing for the move, talking to your friends, talking to family, seeing what's going to happen to you, accepting the situation for what it is, your budget and finances, saving as much cash as possible, and that emergency savings in a high yield savings account, and then the plan. Talking with 1 to 2 friends, where are you going to stay? How long are you going to stay at? Is this going to be permanent? How long is this going to be? And what will it take for you to come back? As always, if you have any questions, let me know. I hope you don't have to use this advice, but if you do, I hope that you found this video helpful, and let me know what other things you would like to learn about or want to know from me. Bye.